are facing development challenges on a global scale.
Today, 40 out of 56 million deaths
are attributable
to non-communicable diseases
such as heart disease, stroke, chronic respiratory disease, and diabetes.
Over 800,000 people
die by suicide every year.
In the Philippines, 5 out of 10 families in 2017
were deprived of basic education.
Nang dahil sa kahirapan, maraming pamilya ang napipilitang pahintuin
sa pag-aaral ang kanilang mga anak.
In remote areas, public transportation is inaccessible.
Children have to cross rivers and climb hills
with their books and bags just to go to school.
Philippines ranked 3rd in the top 10 countries with the most natural disasters
for the years 2005 to 2014.
Driven by the goal to achieve sustainable future for all by 2030, the UN identified and adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, to address the global challenges we face. This can only be achieved through a collaborative effort of all countries and stakeholders.
Aligned with the ATRAM's mission to engage, inspire, and collaborate
to build a financially secure future,
we are committed to building that future where no one is left behind.
We have adopted 3 out of the 17 SDGs,
aiming to make a positive impact,
as well as ingraining more responsible
and sustainable business practices within ATRAM.
Good health and well-being ensures healthy lifestyle and promotes well-being for all ages. Quality education ensures inclusive and equitable quality education and promotes lifelong learning opportunities for all. Climate action takes urgent action to combat climate change and its adverse impacts. With these goals, a sustainable future is possible, a future where no one is left behind.
The time is now, more than ever, that we must work together
to achieve the global goals in ensuring healthy lives, improving access to education,
and fighting climate crisis.
We at ATRAM declare full support to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Let's start today. Let's invest in a sustainable future together.
Invest to thrive. Invest together.
We are engineering a first world Philippines. That is our mission. When everyone followed the same path in construction, we sought a different path to build with precast and other advanced technologies. When the world said we had the worst airport, we built the first resort airport and strived to make it even friendlier. When people thought that all we had are third world bus terminals, we built a world-class land port facility. And when others deemed it impossible to deliver 10,000 classrooms in 5 underserved regions in Luzon, we found ways to work with communities and made it happen. This is who we are. We aspire to chase every possibility to transform our nation. Because if you have a vision to raise a nation, you better do it first world.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to Philippine Infrastructure, the runway to recovery, another special webcast as part of ATRAM's exclusive webinar interview series with some of the top minds in the country. Today, we will be welcoming the founder, chairman, and CEO of Megawide Construction Corporation, Mr. Edgar Saavedra. But before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that you may ask questions throughout the discussion by clicking on the Q&A button on your screen. We will get to as many questions as we can at the end of the discussion. Additionally, I'd like to let you know that this webinar will be recorded and that copies will be disseminated within the day, as well as posted on all our social media pages. Now to introduce today's moderator. As ATRAM's head of equities, he oversees the management of domestic equity portfolios, spearheads the development of ATRAM's equity investment process, and periodically shares the firm's outlook on the asset class. However, he will be taking charge of today's exciting conversation. Let me now hand the floor over to Mr. Julian Tarrobago, Jr.
Hello and welcome. My name is Jun Tarrobago and I head the Equities Group at ATRAM. The lockdowns have left businesses, stock markets, and the global economy, including the Philippines, in a state of shock. The quarantines have led to factories slowing or halting production. Jobs have been lost, furloughed, or put at risk, and governments are increasing borrowing to cover the costs. But things will improve. The lockdowns will eventually lift, and we will recover. But what part should infrastructure play in that recovery? And how can investments from both government and the private sector accelerate this? Infrastructure stimulates economic activity. The estimated multiplier effect of infrastructure spending ranges from 1.4 to 4.5 times, depending on the type, location, and size of projects. Infrastructure likewise improves the flow of economic activity within regions or key regions. Infrastructure spending improves internal regional mobility, thereby enhancing trade opportunities and overall economic productivity. By the way, it also helps developing provinces through farm-to-market roads and other broad-based employment opportunities. I think one of the biggest, if not the biggest significance or one of the biggest benefits of infrastructure is that, especially now, it will provide employment opportunities. Our very own NEDA estimates that an average of 1,510 jobs are created for every 1 billion pesos spent on public infrastructure. Aside from direct hires in construction, industries such as land transportation, electricity, finance, food services benefit from increased infrastructure spending, resulting in a higher overall employment absorptive capacity. With this in mind, we are honored to have with us today the valiant founder, chairman, and CEO of listed Philippine construction giant Megawide, my friend Edgar Saavedra.
Hi, Jun.
How are you, man?
Can you hear me, Jun?
Yes, very clear, very clear.
Okay. And can you see me?
Yes, I can see you very clearly.
Okay. Good morning, Jun. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning. Morning, Edgar. So how are you? How's the family?
Well, good. Of course, very safe because we're just staying at home. But except me, I go to office since last June. So, but my family stays at home since the lockdown.
Okay. Staying at home. Yeah. Well, now we have a little bit more freedom and mobility now that we've been sort of upgraded to GCQ and hoping that the lockdowns are lifted gradually and we can get back to what we need to do. What's your go-to activity in this quarantine, Barry? I mean, what have you been doing? What have you been busy with? What's occupying your day? Just curious.
Well, the only difference now, right now I go to office every morning. I go to office like 11 o'clock, starting 11. I go home like 7 in the evening. Now, I think the difference, right, I noticed lang, Jun, I realized there are things that I'm doing now that I think is helping the company. Like, number one, the traveling time, meaning meeting with people before, like based on my estimate, I consume like 20 to 30% of my time traveling abroad and also traveling by car. So all of this now becomes productive. Okay. And so I have more meetings, and the meeting is more focused because, unlike before, there are too many distractions. So Now I focus a lot in some strategic activities, like I do a lot of research with my own studies, some own studies in the management. How can we improve the organization? How can we make the people more productive? And now the challenge is, how do we make the people energized again? Because of all of this pandemic, June, you know, people are, the paranoia, it becomes a normal thing. I think I realize everyone is getting paranoid on this pandemic, right?
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the challenge is, but I think it's almost everyone, all organizations. So the challenge is, how can you wake up your organization, your people, wake them up so that they can already start and go back to the normal way, the pre-COVID. But of course, with following some health standard protocols, right?
Okay. You mentioned travel, Edgar. You mentioned travel, and before we get into the actual, talking about structure and the Philippines and Megawide itself, let's. It's nice that you mentioned travel, because before we get down to business, I've noticed you've also been on Instagram a lot, and they say, just maybe to give everyone a glimpse of Edgar Saavedra. I thought you had some very interesting posts in your IG, and if what they say is true, if you want to know something about someone, look at their Instagram. So I hope you don't mind. We took the liberty of showing some of your posts, and maybe we can play as a warm up. We can play a game of caption this. So I'll show the picture, one of your posts, and maybe just say the first thing that comes to your mind, and yeah, we can go from there. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Jun.
So this is the first one.
Jun, I would have more pictures, more OOTD pictures, more selfies.
I should have included your OOTD, your outfit of the day picture, but I chose maybe for a different webcast, but maybe with yeah.
But my wife keeps on stopping me to do it. I said, hey Edgar, you're too old for that. Come on, stop it.
I don't think you're too old for that. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, do you see the picture there?
Yeah.
That's
Winston Su. That's the principal architect of IDA. So IDA is the one who did our architectural work in Mactan.
Wow.
And IDA is really known for airport design.
Right.
So they did Cheplakok, they did a lot of airports in China, and most of the Hong Kong airport, even the annex expansion, all of them were done by Winston.
Yes. So for people who don't know, you guys, Megawide, is the operator and developer of the Cebu Mactan International Airport, and IDA is the designer. And this man beside you is the man responsible for designing the beautiful Cebu Mactan International Airport. So that's it. So next picture, please. So this is, oh, sorry, it's your turn, Edgar. Yes, please.
No, it's okay.
So can you see the picture?
Yeah. So June, that's the airport, Mactan Airport. I took that right after, right after the opening date. The opening day where we launched it was that last year? Yeah, last year, July.
Thank you, Edgar. Next picture, please.
June, I'd like to share you some story on that one.
Yes, please.
The structure is in Mactan. That is a glue lama. It's a solid timber structure. It was all imported from Austrian, German forest, and we have to ship it through the barge of that in Austrian river and transship it to Rotterdam Airport, then to Cebu. So that timber structure came all the way from Austrian German forest, and we have to bring in 8 German Austrian carpenters to erect that timber structure.
Oh, that's awesome. It's indeed a sight to see. Very beautiful. So for those who haven't seen, well, at some point, like I said earlier, we will recover and things will open up. I really suggest if you have a chance, check out the Cebu Mactan International Airport. It's really beautiful work of art. Next picture, please. So yeah, architecture, travel, work, and now this. What's this, Edgar?
That's a pudding. It's my yaya who always do that, bakes that cake or that food because I love that food, so I took that picture and pose it.
I thought you're the one cooking. Your yaya's the one cooking. You just love the food. Okay.
But sometimes I cook with her, so I ask her to cook what I want. I give her what the type of food, how it should be presented.
Okay. Thanks. Next picture, please. So here we go. The juicy stuff, yes. Caption this, Edgar.
Yeah, that's, Jun, I love architecture. Every time I travel, especially with my wife, I always spend time, like I would say 1/4 of our time, I always spend 2 days, 1 to 2 days, just to go around, just to take pictures of all the nice buildings in the area. So I love architecture.
What's this particular building, Edgar?
I think that building is in San Francisco.
Thank you. Next picture, please.
It's very similar to Flatiron. Yeah. Oh, that's our batching plant. I'm with the head of our batching plant.
Okay. Next picture, please.
That one, June, I took that picture. Is a hospital in Melbourne. So because that time, I think that was like around 5 years ago, where 6 years ago, where we participated in one like a hospital PPP project. So we went to Melbourne to meet with this hospital operator. And I like the buildings, and so I took it, and I love the architecture.
Beautiful. Next picture, please. Ice cream on construction site. Ako na yung nag-caption.
Yeah, this one, June, no, every year or every 2 years, we always have like a collaboration or a joint exercise with 2 or 3 Japanese construction companies where they allow us to bring our engineers and go to their job site and learn what they're doing. Because, June, like we have a Japanese guy who's been working for us for, I think, for 12 years already. So that's why we have a strong relationship with a couple of Japanese suppliers, Japanese construction companies. So, and we do that every 2 years, every year. Before it was more often. We do like every year because I want to learn. So we want to learn a lot of new things that in what the Japanese are doing in construction.
So thanks, Edgar. Maybe we'll caption this game there because you mentioned something very important that I think is a key to you building Megawide from scratch into what it is today. It's partnering with foreign technology providers. I think, well, I won't preempt the story, but yeah, that's the testament. It's evidence of that you work with people from different countries that provide that technology transfer that allows us to benefit from better, improved technology through your project. So before we get into Megawide, would it be okay if we talked about Edgar's personal journey? I think for me, you are the embodiment of the Philippine entrepreneurial spirit. You built Megawide, as I mentioned earlier, from scratch to what it is today, which is the construction giant it is today. What was the journey like, graduating from LaSalle, banding together with your friend and building your first project? What were could you share that origin story of Edgar Saavedra before we go to the origin story of Megawide itself?
Okay, yeah. So I guess, June, I have to start first with my roots, no. So I was born in one small town in Zamboanga del Sur. It's called Mango sa Tubig. It's a very, very small town. And I was brought up with my parents. Both of my parents are very active in our family business. So, we were brought up wherein we have to work with we need to help our family. Like every summer, we have to work full time, and even during classes. So our parents used to engage us in the business. So we were already exposed in the business, how to manage the people, dealing with all the operations in the business. So I was brought up in this kind of setting. So then when I went to school in LaSalle, so I'm not a typical studious student, June. So I will
not claim to be the same, but studious.
Especially in LaSalle, right? I think you spend more time doing socializing than studying. So then I took up civil engineering. That time, my first course actually was not civil engineering; it was electronics. But back then, I didn't. Well, the decision was very simple. It's just like I said, no, I want to try the civil engineering because I said I wanna shift to civil engineering because I want to do business. I cannot think of what business I will do if I'm going to finish electronics. So you can see, I think you can see already the entrepreneurial background because I came from the family of very entrepreneurial oriented. So when I finished my college, so I worked in an engineering firm only for 1 year because when I was working, I was already encouraging or convincing my partner. You know my partner, right, Michael? So he was my classmate and also my barkada. So I was already inviting him to do a construction business. Right. So in fact, the first 1 or 2 projects that we have, even before Megawide was formed as a legal entity, I still have my job. I'm doing it outside my job. Then until we got one project, which is the first project of Megawide, back then it was 5 million pesos project. Then I decided to resign from my job. Then I said so that I can focus the construction. I can focus this project so I can build this project.
Okay, thanks for that. Now we go into Megawide. The construction behemoth Megawide is today. It's very appropriate, I think, because we're in a crisis right now, in an economic crisis. In past episodes of the webcast, we spoke about past crises. The last time, BPI President Bongkon Singh actually talked about the moratorium crisis in the 80s. But now the light is shining. I mean, it's so appropriate that you're here because Megawide, for those who don't know, was born during the Asian financial crisis, 97, was it? It was forged in the flames of the Asian financial crisis. Can you take us back to 1997 and maybe from being in school with your co-founder Michael Cosiquen into the Asian financial crisis? How did that give birth to Megawide and what were the conditions and how did you start it? Yes.
Yeah, but you know, June, when we started Megawide, a lot of people ask me these questions. Why did we start the business in spite of it? It's an Asian financial crisis, right? But to be honest, I was telling them, what is it for us to lose back then? I mean, I was telling to all my friends before, like, hey, we just graduated. We have nothing. Practically, we're zero. What is it for you to lose? Come on. If you do a business, whatever things that you achieve right now, one will always be better than zero. So I think that's the only strategy that we have. That's the only reason why we started the business. And I guess the strategy is very simple. So June, we were able to get a project. So then we focused in the construction. Then until luckily, with all our friends, relatives, so we try to approach our friends and relatives and offer them our services that we can do construction. Then slowly, we never stop. We always have projects succeeding as like a pipeline, starting from the first to the second, and we never stop. We just keep on getting projects. So in fact, to the point that we have to control in getting new projects, because we were able to offer good service, and we were able to get projects. And those, June, back then it was a very small project. We're doing like 5 million pesos.
5 million projects.
Yeah, very small amount of money. So we used to do projects of our friends, relatives, neighbors.
Right. What do you think, Ed, were the keys to success? That's the first of two questions. But more importantly, what do you think, did you have any major failures that you thought, actually helped you out in the long run? What were the major failures as well as the successes?
Many. It's always like this. It's always like that. Like we always, there's always a learning curve in every certain number of years. Like I remember when we started our first 5 million projects, because before that we had some small renovation works, like even like 500,000, 1 million. So when we started doing the 5 million, we didn't make money. Then after that, on the second project, then we made money. Second, third, fourth, then we overexpanded. When we overexpand, we lose some of the controls. So again, we had some struggles. We also had some cost overruns, delays. Then until we try to rationalize our organization again, then do it right, then we made another money again. So you can see there are a lot of learning curves in construction. In construction, there's always risk, right? If you overexpand, if you lose the control, then you can have cross overrun. So we have all those ups and downs.
Okay.
Yeah, but June, by the way, during that crisis, I want to say something that during that crisis, I realized we were able to grow the company by able to buy very cheap equipment. Back then, we would, if it's not a crisis, I don't think we can buy we can get those kinds of prices. And hiring people back then was quite easy and more affordable, because you have less opportunities for engineers and architects. So what I'm saying here, June, that in crisis there's always opportunity.
Yes.
Because you have people
Amen.
like you just have to find your niche market.
Right. So you shifted from, well, we're gonna talk about opportunity. We're gonna have a lot of time to talk about that. But you mentioned you started out with 5 million peso projects and residential. I would assume. No? How did you end up in? How did you end up doing infrastructure projects?
Okay. I think I have to give you some background first. So Megawide, when we did, I don't know, we were doing back then, kasi June, the construction is only, there was no infrastructure, almost very small, very minimal. So public infrastructures were projects were so small, only like roads, small bridge, barangay roads. So basically the opportunity back then was just the private construction private sector. So these are buildings. So when we were growing, the company, so from building houses to buildings, then eventually to condominiums, because from 1997 until 2005, 6, 7, the condominiums, the high rises were starting to come in. So while the real estate sector is starting to gain momentum, we were able to ride on that. So that's why we were able to grow the company by able to get more residential projects. I remember June, I think that was around 2007 when SMBC back then they were Relatively very small. They only have one small project, like 5 stories. And that's why I'm very thankful to the C family, especially to Mr. Henry C. Jr. And he approached us and said, "Oh, Edgar, Mike, I have 7, 8, 10 projects." But back then, SMBC's organization was pretty small.
Right.
I said, "Okay, if you can help me build this, help us do the..."
You were not a client yet, Ed, when he said that to you. Oh, he was not a client yet, a customer yet, or were you? How did you know each other before that?
We bid it. We won the first 2 of their projects. Then when we were doing the construction, and then our big boy approached us and tell us, "If you can do all of this, our project with this price, you help us do the engineering. If you can do this price, then I give it to you."
Okay.
And he said that to us. And he said, "Yes, of course, we can do that."
That was the break.
The entrepreneurial spirit, right? So,
Right.
but true enough, June, back then, SMDC, there were like 200 employees back then. So we also work with them and how to, and with their architects on how to be able to design and construct their project at the budget of the big boss, the big boy. So that was also one of our tipping points. So we had a very high order book. That was like 2007, 2008, 2009. Then that's where we, at the same time, we were already trying to use a high-tech equipment for us to be able to build faster. So I remember back then, June. So we were about medium-sized company. So, but we have 2 or 3 expats who are working with us. 2008, 2009, and a lot of these big companies were very surprised, and they were saying, "Huh? How come these small companies is hiring a 2-3 expats and buying all expensive German equipment, and how can they afford it?" But I have a reason for that, June. Kasi if you look at our background, June, practically we didn't have any experience, or I only have 1 year experience in engineering, not in construction, not in project construction site. So basically, when we were growing and we want to expand our capacity, the learnings that we were implementing, we tried to research it in Google. We tried to email, and I remember one of the German guy who replied to me, who happened to have a Filipino wife. So I responded to me and said, "Oh, I can help you." And that's all started. So we went to Germany to meet with him, and he brought us to how the German construction, he brought us to German construction site. So now I was trying to realize, why did we do that? It's because back then that's the only thing that we know, because we don't have any experiences. So I think there's always a good and bad. Meaning, if had it been, I have like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 experience in construction site, probably I would not go to as far as Germany, and I will not try to invest in this kind of equipment. But because the construction industry in Philippines, as we know, are a little bit laid back, especially we know right? So I don't have anything to unlearn because I come from like a zero know-how. So I think that also gives a good balance. So we learned a lot of our new techniques, methodologies in construction, because we brought in a lot of technology.
Yes.
But
so maybe we zoom out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, zoom out a little.
What we're doing, June, we're trying to bring in the technology. Back then, the strategy, without us knowing that technology and people, we're already bringing the expert, which is the people side, and we're bringing the technology in the process. We're adapting the developed countries' method.
Right. So thank you for that, Edgar. I think we need to how about we zoom out a little bit before we get into the nitty-gritty. What in your eyes, what is your sense of where the Philippine infrastructure sector is today? What's the state what's the current state of Philippine infrastructure? Maybe you can have a short view on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think right now what I can say, Jun, this is the golden era of infrastructure for Philippines. As you know, if you look at the last 3-4 decades, we hardly have any construction development since the time of like probably 80s, 90s. So with all the revolution, with all the coup d'etat, so it's only now, I think this is the reason why Philippines is, well, we have too many traffic, air and land traffic, because we lack the infrastructure development for the last several decades. So I think this time, I think the government have already pronounced that they are increasing in terms of the spending of the infrastructure from, for the last 10-20 years, from 1 to 2%. Now they want to increase it to 4 to 5%, right? So I think we are just in the start of this golden era of infrastructure. And that's why, as a company, so since we have the know-how, we want to capitalize on this and slowly diversify our capacity to more infrastructure construction and as a proponent, as a developer.
Thank you, Edgar. So in building these large infrastructure projects, how important are, I'll break it down into two areas. How important are engineering and construction? And what's your assessment of Megawide in those areas? And then let's go deep into Megawide after this question.
Okay. Yeah. You know, in infrastructure, June, the most important factor in construction is, as you know, right? Construction is capex heavy. So for you to have a very efficient capex, you have two very important especially for a typical infrastructure asset. Your capex should be very efficiently programmed and planned. Meaning, this is very highly technical. You need to have the right engineering, right design, and you need to have the right execution. This is the construction. So this is part of the capex, which is what Megawide has right now. The other part of the infrastructure is the operation side, operation and maintenance. If you have the engineering capability, technical capability, this will always give you an edge. So the two most important factor of business in the infrastructure, this is what we want to enhance and further improve on this. Okay. So I think that, and the most important, I think the other, by the way, Jun, the other factor that I always say this to our employees is the most important factor is the youth. Because, well, although I'm already 46, June, no, but if you look at our management, our organization, the average age will be like late 30s to 40s. So I keep on telling them, we need to learn from our senior officers in the organization, from our directors, because the moment if we can develop this 40s average age executive, and this is the company direction, to have a younger organization, then we can be more agile, we can be more flexible, we can do things faster.
Yeah, well, Megawide does come off as a very young and dynamic organization that's capable of adapting to the environment and see.
Yeah, because
so maybe we can.
If you have a young organization, the likelihood you become dynamic. The organization will be more dynamic, more flexible. That's the natural state of a younger generation.
So a third element of the important aspects of infrastructure is the ability to partner with what you mentioned earlier, technology-related technology providers, new technology providers. And another aspect is the partnership with the government. But we'll ask that a little bit later. In the meantime, let's dive deeper into construction. What is the size of Megawide's order book right now? And how long do you think before we can get construction earnings back to 2019 levels?
Okay. Right now, construction order book is around 46 to 48 billion. But to be honest, Jun,
Yes.
there are some clients that are still, I would say about 20% of them are a little bit uncertain or undecided.
Sure.
But the way I look at it is on the best case scenario, because in spite of this crisis, we also have, surprisingly, we also have projects that I'm also surprised that there are some projects like casino projects where client is also rushing. And the good thing also on the infrastructure side, we won a bid in the Malolos Clark Railway.
Yes.
So the first few package were already awarded to the other bidders, and we are participating in the second package. So if all of these new projects that will come in, so on the best case scenario, probably the tail end of second half to end of 2021 next year, we can recover. But on the worst scenario, probably we're looking at 2022.
Okay. Thank you, Edgar. You described the most important elements as, if I interpret it correctly, construct as people and engineering know-how. Given the current challenges still in construction, on the people side, how are you addressing the challenges on the people side of the equation for construction? For social distancing?
Yes. In fact, are you referring, Jun, to this pandemic or generally?
Yes. This particular quarantine restrictions on movement, on travel, on how many people you can have on the site. Is that something that is actively being managed by Megawide, by you and Megawide?
Yes. In fact, Jun, you know, I'm really surprised that right now I'm spending like maybe 40 to 50% of my time I need to spend in the people management side.
Sure.
Because especially these last few days, do you know, Jun, since last 3 weeks ago, almost every week, maximum 2 weeks, I created a talk show, busy, just to engage the employees. And now, because I plan to do it every month, the first one we did was like a month ago, but I realized 1 month is not enough because I can sense that the people right now, a lot of them are paranoid. So if one gets infected, they become so anxious and they become like so paranoid that then they create distraction to all. But I think it happens. It's not only an organization, Julie. If you look at the entire other country, right, or globally, so people are. I think some are overreacting on the situation. So we have now, I can sense that some people are anxious, some people are depressed because they were positive, but they were asymptomatic. So right now, the challenge really how to deal with them psychologically, how to make proper communication, engage them. So we need to over-communicate. I'm doing a lot of communication, a lot of engagement. That's just to let the people realize the real situation. And I think I can sense even from our client side, the suppliers, people are so, it's like they're in the hyper mode. What's that? Hibernate mode. So they're in the hibernate mode. You have to wake them up.
Right. Thank you, Edgar. Unfortunately, there still is a lot of fear out there. I agree. Let's move on into engineering, construction, and then engineering. I think one of the most important aspects of it is your technology you imported from Germany. And this is prefabrication. Is this the same as modular? Is it and how does prefab or prefabrication impact quality, speed, and project delivery? And maybe as a time check, we have about 8 minutes left for discussions, and then we'll open up to Q&A for people on the floor after 8 to 10 minutes. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So I think, Jun, that was the prefab. That was the reason why we went to IPO. So because when we were engaging in Germany, we realized that the way to build faster, the trend, the future in doing construction is really to do more prefab. So now when we built our the plant we had like last 2001, we were the second largest in Asia, June, back then. So now, right now, we have extensive know-how. The difference, by the way, June, there are companies who can do precast, but however, the difference between us and them, the major difference is the engineering capability. Meaning we have people, we have know-how on how to re-engineer your design, your building, your infrastructure, whatever structure that you have, that we can do we can convert it to prefab. You need to have that know-how.
Sure.
Then you do a fabrication. So that's the edge that we have. We have the right people, we have the expert people, the experts who've been working for us for more than 10 years, and we have the most advanced facilities. In fact, June, a lot of the Japanese companies right now, when they saw our facilities, they were surprised. They were amazed that they didn't expect that a Filipino company will have this kind of facilities. It's even more advanced than what they're doing in Japan.
Thank you, Edgar. Maybe for those who don't know, prefabrication is you're already manufacturing the structures and then just assembling it on the site, right? Is that an accurate?
Yes. In fact, June, right now we're doing on the average we're only doing 30 to 40%, 35% prefab. So meaning there's a long way to do for improvement, because you can actually do even up to 80-90% prefabrication. So that means there's still a lot of improvements to be done.
And this allows you to deliver the project how much faster than the traditional construction approach?
It can go as fast as like cutting the time by 40 to 50%.
40 to 50% faster. And construction time is everything.
70%.
Right. And I understand in Singapore, the government is mandating all projects to be prefabricated in terms of approaches. Does that make sense here in the Philippines?
Yes and no, June. Yes and no. Because the difference in Singapore, if you want to do prefab in Singapore, it's 25% more expensive than they do a traditional construction. But because it is mandated by the government, so they have no choice. But for Megawide, the only challenge we have here, we need to make it competitive. Now, for you to make it competitive, you need to have a number of right size of the volume, like the size of the project. You have it should be like a mass housing type of thing where you can modularize it. So you need to have that kind of criteria.
Sure. Thank you, Ed. Now let's go into for me one of the most exciting aspects of Megawide. Megawide has evolved from a pure construction company just 5 years ago to having potentially 2 of the country's biggest airports. Potentially. It has the most beautiful airport, hands down, potentially 2 of the largest. Why did Megawide go into airports in the first place? And maybe, sorry to preempt you, but another time check, I think we can, are you okay to extend up to 12:10 possibly, if that's fine?
Yes, I'm free.
There's a lot of juicy stuff here.
Even another hour.
Everyone's okay with it. So why did Megawide go into airports in the first place?
Okay, so June, back then, when we went public in the IPO, we already have told the investors, including you, that we said, okay, because a lot of investors ask us, how do we address the cyclicality of construction business? So one of our roadmap during the IPO, we said we want to diversify to do more infrastructure and do as a developer and construction and developer in infrastructure space. Because to have more recurring income, to balance the cyclicality of the company.
Sure.
So back then, June, the first PPP project of the government, the 10,000 classrooms, we were the first company to have supported the government. And we won, when we won that, a lot of the 5 biggest construction companies even withdrew back out on that project because they said, I don't think the budget is way too low. And the time frame that the government have given is too short. So we were the only one who said, okay, no, we'll do it. Because partially, June, we said, well, it should be, you need to also start not only look at the business on the profit, but also if you can do this is one way for us to help the government, right? Or the Filipino people, at least you're constructing public school buildings. So then fast forward, June, I'll just make it quick. So when we won that, So we were very active in participating in this project. Now, when the government announced another infrastructure, like the airport, so we were already thinking, do we really need to participate? Can we compete with the big boys? I mean, is this too ambitious? Now, come to think of it, Jun, back then when we were thinking, if you look at the infrastructure, no operator, airport operator in the Philippines, because most of all the airports that we have here are run by the government. So technically, it's a new industry. So all the big boys when they participated, our argument is that if we can get the right partner, and if we can get if we can raise the money to fund that, then I think we can have the edge, because we are a technical company. If you look around the big companies, June, practically we only have 2 or 3 that are an engineering and construction company in Philippines. DMCI is one, us.
Right.
The next one is EEI. So, but we are we're more active when it comes to the PPP type of thing. So when GMR approached us, so we said, yeah, we can. In fact, June, when GMR, they approached 5 or 6 companies, the big one. Then the last one they approached is us. So when we met, then they told us, I think you're the right partner. Then we shook hands on that day, the same day. So then that's the history. So we participated the bid, then we won. And as you know, June, when we won, a lot of people were skeptic because we were young, we were new, we could not build it.
Now people are saying you got a great deal, and that's because no one wanted it back then. But what have you done with it? Maybe very briefly, and then we can ask about some challenges. What have you done with Cebu Mactan since then? I mean, can you give a very short thumbnail summary of that?
Yeah, when we took over the airport, June, the Mactan was doing almost 7 million traffic, but the facilities back then was designed for only 4 million or 4 million. Then, what we did on the first few months, the immediate result we said, okay, we need to be able to address the queuing, the congestion in the terminal. So because we know it will take 3 years for us to build a new terminal. So what we did, the existing terminal, we reconfigured it so that we will not have any, a typical airport here, June, right? During holiday season, like Christmas season, you always have like 1 hour, 2 hours queue in the check-in area.
Yeah.
So we were able to address that in a matter of 2-3 months.
Sure.
So the Cebuanos have felt the big change on that one, just by reconfiguring the existing facilities first, then put some process, put some systems, and we were able to transform it. And the Cebuanos people were very happy because they said, oh, we were able to feel the effect in a matter of less than 6 months. Then until we built the new terminal, which was just completed last year.
Right. Before we go into NAIA, can you help us understand what structural changes could permanently change how airports operate, given what's happening right now in the environment, the lockdowns and the restrictions on travel, and how do airport operators look at their portfolio, and how can airports adapt to the current environment?
You mean, June, what structure in terms of the operation of the airport?
Operation, approach.
Okay. Yeah, I think, June, right now, if you look at for example, in this current scenario, we know that it will take time for the airport or for people to start do more travel, right? So,
sure.
But what we're doing right now, June, we created facilities in the airport, like testing facilities. We built laboratories beside the airport, so that it becomes like the security. Remember, after 9/11, the whole travel experience has changed, and the whole system has changed. The security became strict. But right now, this is similar, but you adapt it into health. So eventually, you will have more control systems in terms of testing by doing swabbing. You will have those precautionary measures so that you make sure people, when they travel, the passengers inside the plane, they're all COVID-free. So, but if you look at now, there are a lot of testing kits, testing procedures, techniques where you can spot positive cases of COVID.
Thank you, Edgar.
I think that will be the new trend in the airport.
Sure. Thank you for your insights there. Now let's talk about the value, very shortly, the value of partnerships, of working together. You have technology partners and you've been working with the government. What are the key nuggets of wisdom here, or what have you learned, and what are you using based on what you've learned from your years of experience working with technology partners and with the government? And then we'll talk about NAIA after.
Okay. Yeah. And like for Megawide, Jun, no, like especially even me, even with our vendors, remember those German suppliers, we normally work hand in hand. We want to work as a partners, even vendors. So now even as a shareholder partners, so the key in a successful partnership is really synergizing, right? So although, for example, working with foreign partners, you will always have cultural differences, right? Sure. But you just really need to manage that, especially with your management, with the people in the management, because you will always have the day-to-day activities, and if you have too many cultural differences, you will have some friction, tension. So you have to manage that. That's really the challenge. You have to manage the people and tell them, oh, come on, you have to, at the end of the day, we have our own different way of doing things, but the objective is the same. So I think that should be, you need to make sure that you have a common objective, and you just have to be able to take out the emotions and deal with it professionally.
Right. And does that apply to the government as well? Because that's a great segue to the next question, which is, what is your vision? So you have earned the right to have the first crack at Ninoy Aquino International Airport, having Cebu already at this point. What's your vision for NAIA, and what are you seeing that other parties don't in terms of NAIA's viability? Yes.
Okay, I guess first, siguro, Jun, I want to share why dealing with government, especially with like critical projects such as airports, building classrooms, and we did also terminals. So the experience we learned in the government, Jun, especially in the infrastructure sector, you need to understand the government structure and the private sectors and how they behave, including the local government unit. The dynamic is very critical, and understanding the technical know-how, the capacities of the technical know-how of the government and the private sectors, and the entire industry. I think that is a key for you to understand the situation, for you to have the pulse of the people, the pulse of the regulators. You have to understand that.
Right.
Now, for NAIA, Jun, for us, it's very simple, Jun. What is the top 3 problems that we have right now? For example, in this NAIA, the challenges. The challenges is the air traffic congestion. We know NAIA before COVID, the capacity is 30+ million, but we're doing 45. We need more. We can do more traffic, but however, the capacity is already restricted. It's constrained.
Sure.
Number 2, the 2 challenge during peak season. We always have problems, congestion in the terminal side, right? So I think for us, that is the 2 most important. Even for a passenger, you don't want delays. That's the 2 most important things. So that one we can address it in a short period of time. Meaning just by fixing the system, fixing the organization, fixing the reconfiguration, the layout, do some technical basic change. Then we address the air congestion and the land side congestion.
Right. And it's interesting that, and I'm not surprised you know that because you have a great partner, but I guess something worth noting is also you as the founder and the main man behind Megawide is an engineer. So you have this natural affinity for all of these creative solutions, I would think. One last question, and then I really need to open up to the floor for questions, is people are asking funding for it's not a small project. I think 60 moves per, I think 60 moves per hour on the runway, and I think 150 billion dollars. Is that 150 billion peso project size? If memory serves me right.
100.
How's the funding approach for this?
Yeah. So Jun, if you look at our track record, when we did the classroom, it was a 12.5 billion pesos, and we were like, that was like 10 years ago, no?
Sure.
We were far smaller, no reference, no track record. We were able to raise that money, the 12 billion of the classroom. We were able to raise 35 billion in Mactan. We were able to raise money in PTEX, about 6 billion pesos. So I think the challenge here, Jun, is how can you make the business viable and make it bankable? Because it's how you defend it to your lenders and to the investors like you are, right? So, because if you can make your business viable, and then it becomes bankable, and of course, you will attract investors and lenders.
Right.
And Jun, mind you, when we did the classroom, no one wanted to participate. That not even the big ones, not even one wants to participate because they find it slow. And when we bidded Mactan, Clark Airport, Juna, I remember the time, the duration the government gave us was only 2 years. From ground zero, build twice the size of Mactan in 2 years.
Right.
And design, includes design, engineering and construction, only 2 years. And we bidded 24% lower than our lowest bidder. And a lot of people were skeptic. How can you do that? You're going to build the airport. So, but we did it. And it's also a turnkey, Juna. It's a turnkey project called 10.6 billion pesos.
Right. Okay.
So we did the 10,000 classroom. We finished the Mactan, and we finished Clark. We also did PTEX. PTEX, we were like, the next competitor was bidded for 500 billion subsidy. We only bidded for 100 billion. I mean, you can see we always bid way too low than the second best bid. And people are always skeptic if we can really deliver. But we were able to finish that for 5 projects. I think that should be a good track record number.
Sure. Thank you, Ed. So we'll open up to Q&A. We have a few questions on the chat. I will read some. And then I think at the end, Phil will ask a few questions as well, and then we'll integrate and wrap up. So since we're talking about NAIA, what is the update on the NAIA project?
Oh, so right now there's still an ongoing negotiation with the grantors. So we are bouncing off some documents, and discussing some of the terms. So yeah, we are in that stage now, Jun.
So thank you. I think Phil wants to ask the next question. Phil?
Yeah.
Phil. Hi.
Good to see you.
How are
you? For joining us. I'm very well, thank you. Edgar, I just wanted to ask about your journey of going public. No? I mean, how that helped you really transform the business. I think it's the dream of many entrepreneurs, right? To finally be listed in the stock exchange and a public company, and not just that, but being very successful. So can you walk us through a little bit of that journey? And was it a mindset early on that you said, this is a must, we have to go there? Or did it come because of circumstances? I'm curious about that. And maybe some folks on our call today that have businesses want to understand that mindset that you need to reach that milestone of becoming a public company.
Okay, so Phil, to be honest, it's more of a mindset rather than the strategy. The strategy will always, because like in our case, Jun, Phil, we started young, right? So we started 22 years old. So we are not that good in strategy as we grow the company. but it's really the entrepreneurial mindset that we just keep on growing. And I guess one of the good traits that Megawide or I have is we always adapt the situation, even the crisis. And if you do go public, then when we did our first few years, we have some challenges because we don't have the system in place. So we have to adapt and address the issues as we move along. So even right now, Phil, right, we're doing new business, new airport, new segment. So you have to learn fast and adapt the situation and learn the know-how, and it becomes like an expertise.
Well, I'm curious if that going public was a key factor for you to get to that next level, or could you have done it in a private sense? I mean, I'm wondering if that's something that helped you grow.
Yes, it is. It helped us grow the company, Phil, because if we were back then, if we didn't go public back then, so I think we were not able to learn all of this, like dealing with investors like you and not meeting
bank relationships,
exactly, because Phil, we don't have any experience, right? We didn't work in any corporate world. We don't have experience in investor relations. We didn't take any master's degree. We're just an engineer, and all our experience, like we work with our family in a family business, like a typical mom and pop business. So it opened our eyes to the capital market. It opened our eyes on how to do the brand equity. So it's really more of the learning part is the biggest factor for me. It's because it forces you to learn and do all of this stuff.
Well, it's very inspiring, Edgar, and I wish you really all the best in the near future. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Phil.
Yes, we're not ending yet, Phil. Maybe a few more from the.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, from the floor. So, do you have your own fleet of transport equipment, Ed, to move the prefab structures, and how does this work for projects away from the prefab manufacturing sites? Yes.
Yeah, in fact, we have a complete. In fact, Jun, if you look at our fleet and equipment and fleet, you won't feel that you're in the Philippines. If you look at our facilities, all the facilities we have, all top-notch brand, the most advanced. In fact, some of our fleet or equipment that we're using for prefab is even more advanced than in Singapore.
Sure. I think the last. Thank you for that, Edgar. The last question we'll take right now is: are you also going to develop the airport in Zamboanga and Cavite?
No plans for that right now, June. Maybe if we can get the NAIA, I think that should be. We have enough work to do in the next 5 years.
Right. Okay. This was an absolute pleasure. Maybe just to integrate everything that you've shared, your insights today. Our interpretation from what you've mentioned is that Megawide is proof that periods of crisis like what we have right now can also be fertile ground for startups. I mean, like I said, Megawide was born during the Asian crisis. With the right mix of technical expertise, adaptability, and the entrepreneurial spirit, you guys, Megawide, slowly became one of the biggest construction players in the country. And you did not rest on your laurels, as you talked about. You continue to innovate, developing your precast technologies from Germany in anticipation of future trends in the industry. And you transformed your company from doing residential projects into infrastructure and then into airports. If that's not dynamic, I don't know what is. And you will be one of the, I think, main beneficiaries of the golden age of infra. You talked about current risks also. It presents opportunities for Megawide in terms of your applying your technology, and also you now have a shot at improving the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. And for all of those, we are very, very happy and grateful to you and your team for sharing with us your insights. And want to thank everyone for joining us as well. This has been very enriching. Sorry we extended a little bit. Yeah, would you like to have any message for people who are watching, Edgar?
So, well, thank you, Juno. It's my pleasure. I want to thank you also for ATRAM, because you're always you're very supportive, in Megawide, believing our story. So to all audience, who are watching, so what I can just say now, in that, especially now with the NAIA, June, a lot of people are asking about NAIA. I'll just focus on that. So I guess what we want to say, June, is Megawide has transformed from a purely private construction company to more infrastructure. We want to, our vision, June, in fact, for the last 3 years, we created our new vision, wherein we only not build just to make for profit, but we want also to be part of the nation building. That's why, if you look at our tagline, we want to build the first. We want to build the first world facilities. So the vision is to have the first world Philippines. Meaning, on all what we're doing right now, we want to make sure it's world class. It's not a typical, because we always have facilities like very third world. We want to change that. So it's not only about pure profit, but also if you can impart your knowledge as engineers, even the whole organization, our engineers and staff also are proud Filipinos that we want to build something that is world class and contribute to the country.
Let's go.
Because infrastructure is all about government facilities.
Thank you, Edgar. And maybe as a final note, I just want to say, as proficient, as dynamic, as revolutionary, Megawide has been, it's also a company with a heart. A few years ago, one of the orphanages that I support had a fire in its dorm, and I emailed Joanne and Edgar, and they promptly built the entire wing, right, of that orphanage. So, Auspicia, I think. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, June.
Oh, I think Santi will close. Sorry, Santi, go ahead, take it away.
All right, thank you to Mr. Tarrobago and Mr. Saavedra for your very impactful insights, and to our audience for tuning in. Before we wrap up, I would like to remind everyone that a recording of this webinar will be released and posted on all our social media pages shortly. As we end this webinar, we will be sending a short survey to get your valuable feedback to ensure we keep making these updates relevant and useful. We hope you can spend a couple of minutes to answer the survey. We appreciate you taking the time to join us, and on behalf of ATRAM, I would like to wish you all the best of luck. Please stay safe and have a great afternoon.